Right, my little lovelies, my cherubs, my regular viewer. You was in for a treat, innit? Anyway, right. Following on from Chief Inspector Mark Canning, yes, I think, redefining the definition of the word subsequently by saying that the CPS dropped a case on a file they didn't have at the same time as the complainant from the council decided that he didn't want to go to court as a witness. So obviously either the CPS had the file and the investigation was complete and they dropped it, or the witness dropped it and it never went to the CPS. But according to Chief Inspector, these things happened simultaneously, meaning at the same time, or according to him, at different times, really. So I've now obviously made a complaint about Chief Inspector Mark Canning. They've got back to me within about 2 weeks, which last time, when I was waiting for the investigation to come back against DS Cook and DC's Bowen and Hurley, that took 20 weeks. 20 weeks for them to come back and lie about it. But then they're not really in control anymore, are they? So I have the letter here. Dear Mr. Dacres, I acknowledge your communication, blah, 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 blah. The police regulation states on occasions we may receive complaints that on review do not have to be recorded under the Police Reform Act. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, and I don't really care, because this is something that's popped up quite recently. Probably within the last 6 months or so, I've been starting to get this thing that they don't have to record complaints if they don't want to, which is quite handy for them, I'm sure. However, I shall move on. Oh yeah. On current evaluation of your communications you have sent us, I have determined that the complaint made against Chief Inspector Canning is classed as an abuse of the complaints procedure. So you're not, don't remember this, you're not allowed to make a complaint. This is due to the complaint allegation being directly linked to the previous complaint, which I just mentioned at the start of the video, which is why I mentioned it at the start of the video. I appealed against that investigation. Chief Inspector Canning wrote to me informing the outcome of the appeal, which was not upheld. The final paragraph of his letter explains the final decision of the case can only usually be overturned by the courts through the judicial review process. So they want me to go to court, you see. They want me to spend my time, my money taking them to court, when in fact they've answered no questions whatsoever, you know. This is the cruncher, though. I consider that the matter you raise, misspelt that, love, in connection with Chief Inspector Canning should not be allowed to continue, as it is a way of seeking continuous contact regarding a matter of which the appeals procedure has been exhausted, but of which is not agreed with, and that the next process should be via the courts through judicial review. So they've not answered any questions. They've lied. It's all been smoke and mirrors, you know, a puff of smoke behind the grassy knoll and all this sort of thing. But they're basically saying, you know, we're not talking to you. We're not answering your questions. And these people are supposed to be public servants. They're not, because they're all sole traders. They're all a private business. But they're supposed to be public servants. So they're basically saying, we've fed you a load of shit, now fuck off. Right, I have determined that from your communication, the complaints have been made against DS Cook and Bowen and Hurley have previously been dealt with under the previous reference. I also consider the complaints an abuse of the complaints procedure. That's twice I've abused the complaints procedure. On 7th November, you were sent a letter of the outcome of your complaint and providing you with a copy of the investigating officer's report. This is all very boring. Subsequently made an appeal. The final paragraph of this letter explains that the final decision of the case can only usually be overturned by the courts. So they're really, really pushing this point here. They want me to take them to court. In short, because they've got no answers. And as we've seen previously, the police, despite all their lack of apparent resources, have this large amount of Queen's Counsel and all this sort of thing, and lawyers turning up and all the bailiffs and all the rest of it to support them. I consider that the matter you raise in connection with DS Cook and DC's Bowen and Hurley are an abuse of the complaints procedure. Change the record. Dear, oh dear. And should not be allowed to continue as the way of seeking continuous contact. God forbid you have contact with your local police. I mean, on a regular basis. I mean, that's shocking. Therefore, I will not formally record your matter as a complaint, and you're entitled to appeal to the IPCC, which I've done this morning. You have 28 days, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it really is quite... Do you know, I actually just thought I'd read the same bit twice, and I don't think I have, because it just repeats itself 3 times over 2 paragraphs. So I have replied, and this is up, this is gone. So they'll probably get it on Monday, I think, because I did happen to notice there was apparently a collection today, and this went quite early this morning. So this is Mrs. D. Cox, by the way. I've had a similar sort of correspondence from her before. Thank you for your letter dated blah 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 blah. I did send him an email last night because this came through on email with the letter was an attachment. So here we go. In compliment to my email, which I sent last night, consider this then a formal complaint against yourself for being a pathological liar, mostly. But there's a few other issues as well. For a start, you may consider the appeals process to be exhausted, but I, the member of the public to whom you are accountable, do not. Firstly, I have never had any of my questions answered with anything other than lies and subterfuge. Chief Inspector Canning may well be connected to the previous complaint, but he has also lied about the definition of a word, no less. Either the CPS had the completed file of evidence and decided not to proceed, or Ian Sim dropped his complaint, if one was ever made, before the CPS had the file. By the way, that's Ian Sim. He works for the Revenue Department in the Council. He's fully aware of 30 years' worth of stolen taxpayers' money and has done nothing except try to get me sent to jail for exposing it. And I have had, actually, formal clarification from the auditors that money is not in their account and they can't find it. If everyone was made before the CPS had to file. To say these things happen simultaneously is spitting on the graves of the Allied war dead who fought so hard to stop precisely the kind of overbearing, pompous, threatening, and just plain evil tactics you and the police force are currently employing in order to protect your thieving chums at HDC, that's Huntingdonshire District Council. Secondly, I've never had an answer as to why the Chief Constable is a liar, given the auto reply I received to one of my emails when he said he wasn't receiving them, nor why the Chief Police Crime Commissioner's office is allowed to threaten me with violent behaviour, nor why a previous officer lied about the battery on his phone dying, prompting 2 of his colleagues to let him into my house without my knowledge or permission. You may think you own the neighbourhood, but I'm here to tell you you do not. And further, a convicted criminal who has served his time has more credibility than you do now. There are many more examples than this, of the utterly criminal and scandalous behaviour which Cambridgeshire police employ too. But to return to the point, the complaints I made against DC's Bowen and Hurley and DS Cook have not been dealt with, as Cook is clearly a liar, and Bowen and Hurley cannot even decide what rank they are, let alone produce any ID, as Inspector Laura Hunt stated in the Hunt's Post, is required of CID officers upon introducing themselves. So they have actually failed to follow orders to the detriment of what's left, and there isn't much, of the reputation of Cambridge Police, and indeed the service as a whole. I shall not be completing a subject access request to see the webcam footage either. That's when they turned up at my door and said I was being recorded, which I wasn't. As if you had nothing to hide, you would have nothing to fear. Which is what they always tell us, isn't it? Oh, come on, son, if you haven't done anything wrong, you got nothing to worry about. But you clearly do, and as I don't believe for a second the footage was ever made, more lies. So why don't you take a second, you insidious little political puppet, and sit back and think who exactly is committing abuse of procedure? I should at least be grateful that you didn't use the word vexatious this time. I haven't seen that one for a while, actually. In short, Mrs. Cox, you're an utter disgrace and a fraud. But then, you're in good company in Cambridgeshire Constabulary. Right, I shall wrap that one up. There's another video coming along. But please, if you like that, and if the sound is okay on this one, please do feel free to use that letter as some sort of template if you have complaints to make. Specifically the particular language I use. Obviously, the whole thing isn't going to be relevant to your particular complaint. But yes, do feel free to watch and share. Thank you very much. Stop recording. How do I stop recording? Oh, that's how I stop.